Hello everyone, and in this next video we're going to be seeing Anne Boleyn, how she might look in real life. If you're new to my channel, here on Mortal Faces I take historical portraits and I recreate them using my technology and Photoshop skills to give you my artistic interpretation of how I think these portraits might have looked in real life. I also provide commentary to talk you through about who these people were and what their deal was. So let's get started. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more historical recreations, and let me know in the comments who you'd like to see in real life. Anne Boleyn was the second wife of King Henry VIII of England and also the mother of the future Queen Elizabeth I. She was also known for being a key figure in splitting the Church of England from the Pope's authority. Anne was born, give or take, 1501. No one really knows for sure. Her father would become an earl and her mother was the daughter of a duke. There were 5 children who were born. She was the third. There was Mary, Anne, and George who survived. There was also a Thomas and a Henry, but they both died young. Both her parents were extremely ambitious. Her father was a successful ambassador and courtier, and her mother was the lady-in-waiting to Henry's first wife, Catherine of Aragon. And her parents' ambitious behavior transferred into Anne. Anne had a very active childhood. Her childhood not only consisted of the normal art, history, music, math, literature, and sporting like writing and archery, but at a very young age, she had the opportunity to go and work for the Regent of the Netherlands and also Queen Mary of France. In 1521, she would have been around 18-20 years old. Her European education ended and she returned back to England to marry her older cousin, but that arrangement fell through. Being a socialite, her life was filled with a lot of parties, and she quickly became the Scarlett O'Hara of the English court. And that's something that Henry took notice in. Anne's personality could be described as charming, sociable, extremely intelligent, short-tempered, and a flirt. And she was an expert at the game of courtly love, which was the same game that Henry was a master of too. And from 1526 to 1533, Henry and Anne courted. He was about 35, she was about 25. We as the audience can see that there's a big caution sign flashing ahead of them, and that's the fact that both Henry and Anne had huge personalities. We have the Real Housewives on one side and we have the king on the other, so grab a front row seat because drama's going to happen. And here's the long story cut short. Henry was married to Catherine of Aragon, who was the youngest daughter of Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand of Aragon, and I have a video on them separately. Catherine was originally married to Henry's brother Arthur, but Arthur died shortly after marriage. Their marriage was never consummated yet, and so the Pope said to Henry, yes, you can marry her. Pregnancy was not good for them. They had only one surviving child, Mary, who in history was known as the Bloody Tudor Queen. Henry met Anne. Anne did not want to be his mistress. She wanted to be queen. Henry gives her power, status, and authority, but it's not good enough for her. She's refusing to bed with him for all these years, 7 in fact. And Henry gets frustrated. He's like, what's up? I'm ignoring Catherine for you. Is that not enough? No, she says. Henry was getting older by this time and he needed an heir. He did not want civil war to happen when he dies. He knows that Catherine is pretty much done for as she's too old now to give birth anymore, and he wants Anne. She's a major temptress at this point, and emotional Henry comes up with these ideas to blame the church for a fake marriage between him and Catherine, amongst other things. At this point, the king had to go through the church to get an annulment, and through lots of political reasons they refused his first request, so he took it into his own hands to make a case to give himself authority to get rid of Catherine. In the end, royal superiority is recognized over the church, which before it was the other way around. Now Henry could call all the shots, and he got rid of Catherine and he marries Anne. And you can imagine how ecstatic Anne must have felt at this point. All her dreams and wishes were about to come true. She was confident she was going to give Henry a son, something that Catherine could never do, and she would be the better queen of the two. Her family would be well taken care of and she would be the most powerful and rich woman in the land. She might also have thought that, well, if I can get Henry to banish Catherine, then I have the upper hand in the relationship. And at first, it all seemed to come true. Anne became extremely powerful and spoiled beyond means. When she was around 30, she gave birth to the future Queen Elizabeth I, and at this point, it was when Henry started to have his doubts. This would quickly escalate when the second child became a miscarriage or a false pregnancy. She had one more son, possibly 2 by 1536. Either way, they were both stillborns. By this time, Henry was looking at other options for an heir, and began courting Jane Seymour, who was Anne's maid of honor. Anne was not accepting this, and her frequent outbursts just made Henry dislike her even more. With possibly 3 miscarriages, and without the needed permission of the church, impatient Henry was able to write off Anne, and that's what he did. In May of 1536, she was about her mid-30s, she was accused of adultery, incest, and treason. One of her musician acquaintances was suspected of being her lover. He was tortured, and he was forced to spill out other names of who Anne might have also slept with, and one of them included her brother George. Most of them were beheaded, including George. For treason, Anne would have been burned alive, but Henry reduced her sentencing to beheading by an expert swordsman, which was actually much better because it was either that or being beheaded by a common axeman. Her head was sliced off in one swing. She was in her mid-30s. Clearly, Anne wanted to call all the shots, and it might have worked if Henry was more passive, but he wasn't, not one bit. So that's Anne Boleyn. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more historical recreations, and let me know in the comments who you'd like to see in real life. And I'll see you in the next one.